Okay, so now we made it to the next sections. We're going to talk about events. If you're new to this channel and you would like to follow along with the curriculum, the link is in the description. It's free. Let's get into it. Events. Have you ever thought about how programs respond to interactions from users and other programs? Events are code representations of these interactions that need to be responded to. In programming, events are triggered and then handled. Understand, triggered and then handled. Events in programming are triggered and handled. Triggering an event is the act of causing an event to be set. Handling an event is receiving the event and performing an action in response. JavaScript events. JavaScript is an event-driven programming language. I know we're giving you a lot of different things that JavaScript is. Event-driven. We're talking about imperative and declarative, and we're talking about interpreted. Yes, JavaScript is dynamic. It's a lot to JavaScript. So we're always adding more things to it, it seems like. But again, JavaScript is event-driven programming language as well. And what that means is event-driven is a programming pattern where the flow of the program is determined by a series of events. JavaScript uses events to handle users' interactions and make web pages dynamic. JavaScript also uses events to know when the state of the web page component changes. This is going to make a lot of sense when we get over to React. DOM events. Running JavaScript in the browser requires a specific set of events that relate to loading, styling, and displaying HTML elements. Objects in the DOM have event handling built right into them. Some elements, such as a have default functionality that handles certain events. An example of default event handling is when a user clicks an A tag, which we call an anchor. The browser would navigate to the address in the href attribute. The DOM defines numerous events. Each element type does not support every event type. The kinds of events that each element support relate to how the element is used. Handling events. Feature-rich web applications rely on more than the default event handling provided by the DOM. We can add custom interactivity with the users by attaching event handlers to HTML elements and then writing the event handler code. To write a handler, you need to tell the browser what to do when a certain event happens. DOM elements use an event naming convention when declaring event handlers. And the first way we will handle events is to declare the event handler in HTML. This is often referred to as an inline event handler. For example, when defining what happens when a button element is clicked, the onClick attribute is used. This naming convention can be read as onClick of the button, print a message to the console. So here's our example. Here we have a button element opening and closing. Inside of that button element is to ring the bell, and we're passing in an onClick attribute. Know what this is, because we're going to be using the onClick attribute a lot, but it's going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be all lowercase. It's going to be on in a capital C, because this is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. So in React, it uses this particular keyword, but it has to basically mask it in order for you to use the on-click attribute. And then we're passing in the console.log, which is going to say you rang. Now, in the console output, if but is clicked, it will be you rang. Now, you're able to pass this particular console.log because of this on-click attribute can handle it. That's a little bit different, right? Because you may thinking, well, I thought console.log is for JavaScript. Well, here in this particular on-click attribute, this is something that you didn't write. It can handle this particular console.log object and method. That's how it's able to use it, because again, it's a lot up under the hood with this particular attribute. Now notice the use of a single quote around you rang. Let me see it right here. When declaring the value of an attribute to be a string, you must use single quotes inside the double quotes, because remember, we can't mix and match the actual quotes here. In JavaScript, you can use both, it doesn't matter. But notice here, we have the console.log that's inside of quotes, which is representing inside the attribute. And so therefore, you need to be able to pass this particular string inside the console.log. Why? Because console.log takes string, it takes primitive data types. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If not, play around with it so you can see different ways to approach it. Now, tip. Notice the use, I already read this one, sorry. Button elements represents a clickable entity. Button elements have default click handling behavior related to form elements that we will get into a later chapter. For now, we will be defining the click handler behavior. Any JavaScript function can be used as the event handler. That means any defined function can be used because programmers can write functions to do whatever their hearts desire. Defined functions as event handlers allow for more functionality to occur when an event is handled. Now here we have a function called uRang. Now notice here, to be able to run this particular function, it has to be inside of the script tag or the script element. And remember, we're using the function uRang. It's a named function, and then we're doing what? A document.getElementById, which we're passing in the main text ID, which is right here. And then we're doing the inner.html compound operator uRang, and then we console.log uRang. Now, remember earlier when we kind of talked in the last section where we put the script tag up under the p tag because it was referencing that p tag. But here in this script, we are dealing with this function directly. We're creating a function. Remember, it's not where you declare a function, it's where you invoke the function. And this is where we're invoking that function right now, uRang. And then we got the button, it's gonna have uRang as a button. So go ahead and run this in your code so you can see what I'm talking about and see it in the console. And then what happens when you click it, it's going to give you this right here, the output console's uRang. So it's important that you play around with this code. Now, when defining handlers via HTML, be very careful to type the function name correctly. If the function name is incorrect, the event will not be handled. No warning is given. The event is silently ignored. All right, check your understanding. That's the end of this particular section. We'll go into the next section and we will clean up and get a little bit more information on these events. So, with that being said, the more you do, the more you improve. All right, see you in the next section.